Incoming Prime Minister Lawrence Wong says he's prepared to
Mr. Lawrence Wong found his calling.
Singapore's fundamental assumptions in order to take the country forward. He says the process has already begun under the Forward SG movement, citing examples in housing and employment. Mr. Wong was speaking to the media, covering topics ranging from politics to his career. This ahead of his appointment as the country's Prime Minister tomorrow. Sherlyn Seah with this report.
It was first in the civil service that Mr. Lawrence Wong found his calling. Nearly 30 years on, and on the cusp of becoming Prime Minister, it could easily not have been.
When I started working, I was an economist in the Ministry of Trade and Industry. I had been rejected by the Public Service Commission to be in the administrative service, so I wasn't involved in a lot of policy work. My work was largely around economic analysis. And when I was looking at myself, I was looking at friends around me and other schoolmates and peers. I figured, look, I can do economics work in the government. I can do exactly the same kind of economics work in the private sector too, and they are paying better. So the thought did cross my mind, maybe I should just leave and join the private sector, maybe a bank. But at that time, I also had very good bosses in the civil service. Khaw Boon Wan happened to be my first permanent secretary in MTI, and then Lim Siong Guan in finance, and they persuaded me to stay on.
A candidate I'd like to introduce today is Sir Lawrence Wong.
In 2011, Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong invited him to join politics. It has meant Mr. Wong's personal life has been open to scrutiny.
The good thing in Singapore is that I think where politics is concerned, while there is exposure, while you have to put yourselves up to the public and there's less privacy, I think generally we keep families out of it. Families are separate. Our families didn't choose to be politicians. We are the ones who took the step forward.
The road to the Istana was not always on the cards for Mr. Wong. After Heng Swee Keat stepped aside as leader of the 4G, the process to select a new first among equals began. Former Minister Khaw Boon Wan conducted interviews among the 4G leaders. At the end of his conversation with Mr. Wong, Mr. Khaw told him that a consensus is emerging. Mr. Wong did not know what it meant then. He was only told he would succeed PM Lee at the tail end of the process.
I was surprised when I went back home to tell my wife. She was surprised too. But we had been prepared for it because she knew I was part of this process. And we knew that going into this, we would accept the outcome of the process. And if this is the result, then I would step up and I would take on the responsibility.
With that responsibility comes a commitment to, quote, relook traditional approaches. Through the consultative Forward SG movement, policies such as reclassifying new public housing estates to make them more inclusive, and improving skills future to incentivize more people to upgrade their capabilities have been rolled out.
We are prepared to re-examine all our assumptions and consider under different circumstances, different societal expectations and needs, how might we do things different. Soon we will be announcing the new details of the unemployment benefit scheme, which we talked about, which, we in the past had said this was not something we would do. But again, now under different circumstances, recognizing that the economic environment is going to be more volatile, that the pace of change will be faster, technological advancements are continuing, and therefore jobs will be disrupted more and more. We feel it's necessary to have some support system in place. So it's one illustration of how we are prepared to re-examine all our fundamental assumptions and consider ultimately what's the best way to take Singapore forward.
When it comes to difficult topics like decriminalizing gay sex or the wearing of the tudung in workplaces, Mr. Wong says the government will continue to play the role of a facilitator.
I'm sure where there will be different views among different segments of the community. And in some of these instances, not all, in some of these instances, the government doesn't necessarily have to lead from the front. Because some of these instances, the social norms have to evolve more organically. The government, therefore, its role is not so much to say this is the way, but to facilitate, to bring people together, to find consensus on how best to move forward as a people.
Even as the government takes in diverse views for nation building, Mr. Wong recognizes that there is greater appetite for political contestation. It will be among the things he considers as he prepares to lead the ruling People's Action Party into an impending general election. A mandate, he says, is needed to look after the people's interests.
If in the next election the contest is fiercer and we were to lose just a few percentage points, it is not unimaginable for 2 or maybe 3 opposition parties to come together, form a coalition and run the government, get more than 50%. Not at all unimaginable. And that's why when I said that I do not assume that PAP will win the next election or that I will automatically be the PM after the election, I say that seriously. This is the reality of our political situation today. It is no longer a dominant system, one-party system. On my part, as leader, as Prime Minister and later leader of the party, I will do my very best to make sure that the PAP earns the confidence and trust of Singaporeans and we get the mandate to govern.
Mr. Wong's engagements with citizens have also gone beyond the physical realm and into social media, where he hopes to engage younger Singaporeans on policy. But he's been able to get a greater sense of their growing Singapore identity through the Forward SG movement, where they've discussed issues that include learning, employment and volunteerism. Mr. Wong says the younger generation is a group he's proud of and confident in.
They would like to contribute not just to their own careers, but they would like to contribute to something larger than themselves, to a larger purpose. Young Singaporeans want to have a good life, but they want not just the good life to be measured by narrow metrics based on material success. They are looking for meaning, they are looking for fulfillment, they are looking for purpose. I think these are very noble aspirations. And certainly we will do our part in the government to support these aspirations and help young Singaporeans to realize them.
Shedding light on his leadership principles, Mr. Wong referenced former US President Dwight Eisenhower, who gained fame as a battle-hardened commander of American forces in Africa and Europe during World War II.
First, you need to know what to do. Knowing what to do doesn't mean that the leader must have all the answers. But certainly the leader can listen to advice, get views, but eventually the leader must say this is the way forward. Because if you are not even able to articulate and express this way forward, then there's no need for a leader to exist. So knowing what to do is important. But the second part is equally important. You have decided after a process or whatever it is, this is the best way forward. How do you get everyone to come around to agreeing with you and bringing everyone on the same page and say, let's move this way? And that's not easy to do too. That requires communication, it requires persuasion, it requires ways to inspire people, engage people, motivate them, and get everyone on the same page. And that's just as important. Otherwise, the leader will be charging alone.
In a short while, DPM Wong will become PM Wong, and as he gears up for the mantle, he points to his experience handling COVID-19 and delivering the government's spending plans on multiple occasions, as hints of the kind of leader he will be.
Thank you. I will be open, consultative, I will listen, but in the end, I will not shirk from doing the right thing and the important decisions that are necessary to take Singapore forward. So that's how I would describe myself. I don't know if that means iron fist in velvet gloves or whatever other metaphor you want to use, but I think over time Singaporeans will get a better sense of me and my leadership style, and these things will play out and time will tell. I don't have to write my legacy today. I think hopefully at the end of my time and my tenure, I will leave people to write my legacy and what kind of a Prime Minister I am.